Mm-hmm.
So I apologize for the heat. It is what it is.
We'll make it work.
Yeah.
You can't handle the heat. Get out of Atlanta. I mean, what?
All right, Chattanooga.
Can't handle the heat or the humidity.
Yeah, we're
There you
missing,
go, find some coffee.
we're missing Tyra.
Oh, you should be here. Yeah. I don't see them.
Oh, no worries. I'm out very early in the morning, so
Thank you for coming.
yeah, absolutely.
Doing everything you do.
It's
Chad,
been fun.
make sure, please, to say something nice about Blueberry. Because they really do make
Yeah.
communities work, and it's been great, and I appreciate it.
No sweat, no sweat.
Add that to my notes.
You made it.
How are all of you? Where am I?
Wherever you want to be.
Hello.
Wherever you want to be.
How are you?
I'm fine. I feel like I got bullied at the last panel. I don't know if you saw.
Oh no, what happened?
They forced me into setting a date to launch my podcast.
Well,
Oh,
I
that's a
love
good
them.
thing.
Yes.
When
yes.
is the date?
November 5th.
Okay, so November 4th. I bug your ass. Are we live?
You know how you launch
Yes,
your
we're being
podcast?
broadcast
You
to
record and you
kindergartners.
publish.
Being broadcast to the internet.
Oh, I'm sorry, internet. It's been a long day. And at least it
Makes you
wasn't the
worse.
F word.
Right. And it has been a long day.
Okay, I'm just gonna steal one of these. And it started raining on my way over.
Yes.
That's like great. I already did look back, camera ready. So, hi, I'm Tyra. Tyra.
Hi, Tyra. Shelly.
Hi, Shelly. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
How do I spell my
Is
name?
that on mute? Okay, we're streaming. Good.
Oh, street
All right, a couple more minutes now. Get
Get
us
high off the
started.
marker.
Again?
Where is it? Oh my gosh, we were walking over from the food court into the Marriott, and we went by that little side door by where the bar starts. Oh my! And the police were there, and they were just like, whatever. Oh my! Hold it. Why do I have a box of Kleenex?
Was there people partaking?
Oh yes, the ganja was.
In Michigan, it's legal. You can grow 12 plants for personal use at any time.
It is not here in Georgia, but they
No.
don't do the misdemeanor thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Alcohol's worse, so why not just leave that?
I gotta figure out how it is.
All right, everybody ready to get this party started?
No, I gotta get a picture of this thing without my camera in it.
Oh, go for it.
Okay, hi everybody. Channing, you know what my favorite part of this panel is?
What's that?
I'm not moderating it. You are.
And I don't know how, I don't remember signing up for moderators. Or like Channing, moderator.
I think Charles just assigned you is probably what happened.
I think that's lovely.
That's
Where is the Rock Out of Podcasting?
He was in here a little while ago. I don't know where he went.
I have not actually seen him today. We have only texted.
You said something about wanting to hit all the closing parties. I should probably let people know right. Yeah, see, well, you know, that's good. Maybe I don't want people to find me too easily.
And Bucky in November.
Right, exactly.
November 5th, everybody got it.
I got a couple of tequila shots in my bag, so I hit those in the room.
You had me at tequila shots.
I will be sleeping with tequila shots.
Oh.
Getting out there.
Right now.
I'm gonna pull up my notes here.
Hi, nice people.
Thank you for making it out at 8:30 on Sunday nights.
In the rain.
I know.
I did an
That's our
eight.
troopers.
I did an 8:30 panel once, and there was one person.
But that one person got the best panel of their life.
Exactly. And not only, yeah, on a Sunday of that. Yes, thank you to everyone who's here and sober.
I'm sober and I'm very disappointed.
You got people watching on the street, Jason?
Oh, okay. All right, thank
Hi,
you.
we're sober.
Yes, we're very sober. All right, so let's go ahead and get the party started. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Channing Sherman. I'm one of the co-founders of the Black Geeks of DragonCon here. I've also been attending this thing since 2008 and finally decided, hey, you know what? I'm trying to get on a couple of panels and let people hear my voice. And I have the pleasure today of moderating a panel called Building Online Communities. And thankfully, I won't have to do much talking. Hint, hint, hint. Because I have an esteemed panel to my left, and we're going to start that way and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shelly Schmalz, and I'm the Director of Community for Stage 32. Stage 32 is what Forbes likes to call the LinkedIn for the entertainment industry. We have about 1 million members that participate on our site in our lounges, which is officially our online community. So that's our community pillar. We have about 16 different discipline lounges, everything from producing and acting, directing, crowdsourcing and fundraising, cinematography, as well as a screenwriting lounge and program, which is extremely flush with people. We've got anywhere at any time. There's about 200,000 people on Stage 32 networking, participating in our webinars. We have 2,000 hours of educational content on Stage 32, as well as a marketplace. So if you are a filmmaker or somebody in the industry who wants to pitch directly to studios and producers, we have those services for you. And in my role as Director of Community, I get to be able to talk to our community. And so I'm really excited to share that with you today, along with things in my other creative hustles. I'm the Vice President of Programming for Women in Film and Television here in Atlanta. I'm the Creative Director of the Spring Services and Tap House, which is an independent cinema here in town. And then I also produce comedy and burlesque shows. And so that's really fun. And pin up on the side. That's me.
I feel like I don't do enough. So that is
You need
like
extra
all
hyphens.
kinds of awesome. And
Yeah.
this is all kinds of awesome as well. So I'm Tyra Burton. I'm a professor of marketing at Kennesaw State University. I've built communities online with my students as well as with writers. I put on 2 of the largest writers conferences here in Georgia, Moonlight Magnolias, for 2 years with a co-chair. So I know a little bit about building community that way with writers. And I also have 2 podcasts, The Geeky Side and Geek Meets Social, which is where I'm trying to build more of a community. So I hope I learn lots from these other people. I'm here to learn as well.
Good evening. My name is Todd Cockworm. I'm the founder of Blueberry Podcasting. I've been a podcaster since 2004. I do 3 different shows, but primarily my experience really lies with the 85,000 content creators we work with, my team works with, to help build their shows and their communities. So that's where my expertise comes in, at least on the podcasting space.
All right. So, needless to say, I may be the least qualified person on this panel, but I'm looking forward to learning also. Before we start, I do want to remind everybody that DragonCon's official charity is Open Hand Atlanta, and it's a great charity. We've got a donation can up front, and one thing to keep in mind is DragonCon is matching donations. So a lot of people think, oh, my $2 isn't going to make a difference, or my $5 isn't going to make a difference. It's $4 and $10. So it's a good cause. They keep families and, honestly, individuals who need it fed. So if you're tempted after we're done, feel free to toss a coin to our money can.
And there's an online place you can donate as well. If you need that, I will get that for you. And Channing, I think they're going to tell you to eat your mic a little bit.
Okay. Allow me to try to use my big boy voice then. Yeah, that's the joys. That's the joys of me. You never know which Channing you're going to get. So let's just jump right into it. For all its usefulness, the internet can be a divisive and toxic place. I don't think that's a very controversial statement, right? So what is it? What is it about the internet that just kind of stirs this up? Because the internet, if you think about its history and what it was invented for, it should be bringing people together, a place to exchange ideas. Honestly, to be cliche, to make the world a better place. What is it that is kind of helping drive all the toxicity on the internet?
Wow. Okay. So I guess I'll start. I think it's, give anybody the chance to be anonymous in a space, and especially being anonymous for somebody who feels marginalized, or doesn't feel as if they have a voice, or is coming from a place of hurt, or maybe sometimes ignorance. I feel like that's really what fuels the toxicity. It's the opportunity to be, really not nice or hateful to people and not have to be accountable. One of the failures, I think, of some spaces is where if you're not using either a stage name or your real name, or a stage name, or a persona that links back to a real person, it's easy to go on a tirade. It could be about anything, but it's easy to hide behind a computer if you don't think that your actions are going to have a reaction. A lot of times I think people just don't actually account that that's somebody else on the other line. You know what I mean? On the other end of the computer, that they're just typing and they can be hateful, but somebody else isn't taking in that hateful energy that they're putting out there.
Yeah, I actually teach an entire workshop on keeping sane while being in digital media, because it is so incredibly toxic, and that you have to step away. And the really sad thing about it is that when it first started, when we had these chat rooms and dial up, you don't remember that, but it was horrible. Let me just explain that. And it was a great place for people who had never had a voice to have a voice. People of color, women particularly, finally had a voice. And then as we walked along and now we have photos with us and everything else, it's not as anonymous as it once was. And it really gives people the opportunity to show the worst of themselves. And I keep saying throw kindness, and block a lot, unfollow a lot. They're not watching. I have family members I don't follow. You know.
I take a little different perspective on this. I think it all depends on where you're creating at and the environment you're creating at and the type of content you're creating. Largely, and I can only really speak to the podcasting space and maybe the live streaming space, is that those audiences are generally very intimate with you in that they know you very, very well. And it's not a situation where you often end up with someone that is frankly being mean. It's happened. It does happen from time to time. But I think in the most part, people that are subscribed to a podcast want to listen to you. And those that are the folks that may be disagreeing with you may come in with comments or something like that. And I always have used that to my advantage when someone has had something negative to say. But I think it really depends if you're on Twitch or if you're on YouTube or if you're on Twitter or wherever you're promoting. There's different personalities in those spaces. So I think a lot of it depends on where you're actually creating and publishing your content and where you're establishing yourself. So from my perspective, we don't see the hate too much. And I know some ladies run into stalkers,
Oh, yeah.
and that is an issue. So we often caution people that are creating content maybe to be better on a pseudonym, especially if you're talking about content that is adult in nature or dating, or you're putting your personal life out there too much. It might be the best to publish under an alias. But other than that, it's not a lot of craziness going on, luckily.
Yeah, and now that we've got the bad stuff out of the way, let's switch over to the good stuff. I wanted to lead into it. A lot of what you've seen lately are people looking for healthy communities. People are kind of getting sick of the toxicity and the divisiveness. I'm not saying they're looking for a utopia, but they're looking for a place where they can go and just share an opinion and not get attacked. They're looking for a place where they can go and ask a question and not get called stupid. And I know that seems like a very low bar, but for a lot of people, they really have a hard time finding that. So the whole purpose of this is to find out, how do you build a healthy online community? So what have you all done individually and just in terms of trying to weed out trolls and bad apples?
I'll start this one. So one of the things I think you have to do is moderate. And you need to have a group of moderators that have a very clear understanding of what the community content is supposed to be and stick to that content. Try not to go off the rails too much. I'm part of the Women and Marketing and Communications on Facebook. It is a huge Facebook page. I'm just a member of it. I have some friends that are moderators, and they literally have to approve every post. And they shut things down when they start to go off of subject or things get too hot. They'll say, okay, we've had enough conversation about this. Let's move on to the next post, the next thing. So to me, one of the biggest things is having clear moderation, clear rules on what is appropriate for the community and what is not appropriate. I was a World of Warcraft raider, and we had very clear guidelines that if you misogynistic on ours, you were gone because your priest was a female. And if you said anything that was homophobic, you were gone because your tank was a gay man. So we were very clear on that. And anybody who raided with us was that way. And I think you have to kind of have those boundaries to make sure that people understand the space that they're in.
Similar to us at Stage 32, we have implemented moderators who look after and curate our lounges. They make sure that each lounge stays on topic. And so if there is a topic, maybe they're talking about producing, but it should really be in our screenwriting lounge. We've got the ability to move those posts to the correct audience. So the people who really need to hear the message are hearing it, as well, making sure that, not trying to include balance to those who may have either misinformation, because especially something for like the film industry, everybody's an expert, but some are probably more learned than others, and so we want to make sure our moderators are top of the line of our educators in the community who understand when they see something that's not the right information, they can help point out, point them in the proper direction. We also have people who are greeters and who are our lounge crew.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
so in a large community like ours, the third weekend of every month, we have an Introduce Yourself weekend. And we'll have thousands of people coming in new to Stage 32, as well as members who, maybe are coming back to Stage 32 after they've been on a project for a really long time. So we make sure that everybody is seen and heard. We want to make sure that every post has visibility. And because it is an industry where, in the film industry, you are very vulnerable. You're putting your creativity out there. We want to make sure that each post gets, a comment. And so that's what our lounge crew does.
My ability to build communities has been an interesting journey because at the very beginning we had IRC. That was about it. And as technology advanced and some of these cool tools started to come out, and again, it's a progression over many years of moving the audience from one platform to another, we really found that the ability to keep people siloed into systems that we can control was super important. So today, we have some of our community that hangs out in a Slack channel. We have some that are in a Discord channel. And the majority of them, and probably many of you have never heard of this, is a Mastodon instance. And a Mastodon instance is essentially a Twitter replica that you run privately, that you can control the conversations and threads. That's where the majority of my community hangs out, largely technical. So they create an account and hang out over there. And we have the ability, as you said, to moderate. But oftentimes, if you're building your community, you may not run into as many issues as if you're in a group. So if you're in a group like the Facebook group, it can be, you're right, you're going to have full-time moderators to approve things, watch comment threads so it doesn't get out of control. But if you're truly trying to build your community, you kind of have to decide where you want them to be. And sometimes you have to go to them. So maybe that means Facebook. Sometimes that might mean it's going to be on your Twitch channel. So you're going to have to figure out where your community's hanging out and where you want to build them or drive them to. I know Discord is real popular with a lot of the gamers. For the tech non-gamer crowd, it's not. It's other platforms. So I think you have to figure out where your tribe is living and where you want to drag them into to build your community and have those conversations where they're talking amongst themselves about your content, what you're creating.
Okay. And the thing about building online communities is it's a marathon, not a sprint. You can't just expect to start up a new group or a new channel and immediately it's just a hot new thing. There's work that's involved in it. So how do you go about doing the work, not the big splashy stuff, but how do you just get started doing the groundwork? Do you go out and promote it on other channels? Are you doing kind of more face-to-face, in-person things? What are you doing to start that community building from the ground up? Whoever wants to jump in first.
One of you two. I went last time.
Okay, I'll start. For me, it was really within my content, telling them, hey, there's a community that's hanging out, chatting about the show. Come here. And if you want to, and it was a slow grind to get those folks in. And usually what will happen is you get 10% of your biggest fans will join your group. You're not going to get 100% of them in there, but usually that 10%, in my opinion, has been the most valuable. For me, out of that 10%, what did I find? I found my executive producer, the person that helps me produce my show. I found the person that was going to help run my social media efforts. And from that group, we basically have built positions that are paid that over time we've been able to budget to allow our community leaders to really take a piece of the action and really help build the show. So I think my perspective was a little bit different in the end goal. It wasn't to build a 100,000 person community. It was about building a community of core people that loved the show and followed it and would help promote it. So that was my goal. And then the interaction of conversations are always good, or they tag you if you've said something stupid. I think that it all depends on what your content is too. on how you're going to direct those folks to interact with you. If you're on YouTube, it's kind of hard to get them off YouTube to go to another website. So you may have to completely interact on YouTube or your Twitch channel or Twitter or wherever they may be. But pick a point, hopefully one point, to push them to as where you can build the community.
Yeah, I started in a really unique situation. So I started at Stage 32 as Director of Community in June this past year, in early June. So I walked into a community of an online community of people that already knew each other in a lot of ways, and some who had been working, within these cohorts on this community for many, many years. So I spent my first few weeks on the job just really trying to get to know people on a personal level, and making network connections and looking to see who's really active and who is making professional connections on the site, who are our bloggers. We have a whole blog section, and a lot of our members are the people who are writing the blogs. And so how can I, help elevate those within the community, as also within on social media. But I really took my first little while just to get to know people. And I think that's, with any type of community, behind, like I said, behind the computer is a real person with real emotions. And so now that I've been around for 90 days, I'm going back in and I'm reconnecting with people to see, if I haven't heard from them, like, how's that project you're working on? Have you seen this new contest that we have for screenwriting? This is great for this project that, you were talking to me about before. Or I just saw somebody who's looking for a composer for their, for their new film. So it's now that I get to know people, I'm able to kind of integrate myself in the community. And then from there, I've got a base of people that I'm working with, to help bring the community together in the lounges. So I really came at it from just a very personal perspective, to meet people one-on-one so I can engage properly and feel like I'm a part of the community as well. I feel it's always a misstep to just take something on and not really understand the norms or the cadence of the community. What you have to kind of sometimes throw spaghetti at the wall to get a conversation going, I found, where somebody can just share a personal experience. Like, people want to share like deep personal experiences about their creativity, and that's a post that might, because it's so personal, might not get as much traction as somebody just saying, hey, there's this article I just found, and that'll be like, like you see the comments just start going. But it's making sure that person that shared their their goals and their dreams and what they're working on is heard as well. So I want to take that person who may not have had so many comments and connect with them personally.
I think what you said is super important. We must remember that social media is social. So if you're going to build a community, you have to socialize. You have to connect with them. I would have to keep notes. Mm-hmm. Like, I need to check in with Sally and see how that's doing. And that's okay. I have a to-do list. Your to-do list may be, okay, touch base with these 3 people to see how they're doing or comment on their stuff. Being actively involved is going to be important to grow that community. So if you don't know, the Digital Media Track has a Discord, and it is one of the most super helpful, supportive communities in this space that I've ever found. So if you don't know what it is, it's in our link tree off our Instagram account. Please drop by and go to it. But I think what we have is a group of people who are willing to help each other, and people knowing that your space is a safe space for them to ask questions, and sometimes stupid questions, is so important. I also think that you need to consider, if you have a Patreon, that's another type of community, and you're going to have to feed that as well. So I would love to only have one, but if you do have a Patreon, you're probably going to have 2 communities going on, and you're going to need to feed that community as well on a regular basis, and make sure that you're active and engaging with them in comments. The saddest thing I see is when people go out of their ways to tell somebody a story about how they connected with their work, particularly on Patreon, and they don't respond back. Okay, so make sure that you're taking the time. If you're going to build a community, you have to invest time. So make sure you have that time and make it a priority.
One thing that I I hear from content creators all the time is there's really, number one, they're always trying to grow their shows. How do I grow? And number two, how do I get my audience to engage? And I will take and listen to 10 or 15 minutes of an individual show, and not once will that content creator ask for the opinion of their audience or ask for feedback. So I think oftentimes you have to plan into the content you're creating to ask for the feedback. Now, they may not. They may not send you an email. They may not participate in your channel. But you're going to say something at some point that's going to trigger a reaction that will get a response in. A lot of podcasters just use email to get that feedback because they're not listening live. They're not in YouTube. They're listening in their ears. They're driving in their car or on the bus or whatever. So make it easy for those listeners or viewers or whatever content space you're in to be able to feedback to you. And then acknowledge that in the content. I always save room at the end of my show to go through all the emails that have come into the show, positive and negative, to go through those. And I actually lead with the negative because that always generates more comments from the super fans, which is fun. So sometimes you get the following episode, you have a follow-up to a follow-up. So I think the key here is really acknowledging that audience when they do engage with you in a way that you come back in a follow-up show. If you're live and they're commenting, of course, make sure you acknowledge while you're live as well. But I think that most content creators, the struggle is the engagement itself. So I think the key is ask them in a simple way to respond and give them a simple way to provide you feedback. That's going to be a big part of starting to build your community, is getting that initial role. If you're getting 25, 35 people that are responding, then you say, okay, we're time. Maybe we have a Discord channel now, or maybe we go to a Mastodon, or whatever you're going to decide, wherever you're going to centralize those folks at. And I agree with on the Patreon piece too.
Yeah, and calls to action are what he's talking about. And so if you make a post in your online forum, have it where it has a call to action. Because people need to kind of be led. So if you're asking or telling about an experience where you had writer's block, you can say, what do you do when you have writer's block? And that gives them a starting point. And it seems simple, but it's amazing how much just putting that question in there, putting that, hey, this is what I would love to hear from you, helps people to figure out what they should do.
I want to jump back on something Tyra said earlier.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Well, no, nothing bad.
Okay.
You said you said the phrase safe space.
Yeah.
And no matter what your political leanings are, not trying to go there, I think we can all agree that term has kind of been demonized over the last few years. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with a safe space. A safe space is just a place where you can share opinions and ideas freely. To put it in the simplest form, if I say I like apples, I don't want the people who like oranges to come after me. And that's what you get a lot of time on some of these forums. Don't believe me? Go to a Star Wars forum and say that you like the prequels. I dare you. It's not going to end well. But so safe spaces are fine, but you have to be concerned about safe spaces turning into echo chambers.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it's more of the ability to be able to ask any type of question. Being able to ask the basic questions that you feel like I should already know this, but they can do that in that space.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
Well, I think, for us at Stage 32, it also comes out like that's kind of the work of the moderator, is to make sure that, they're monitoring the conversations that are happening. And we do also have a community policy in our, on our site, where if you do, you could be kicked off if you, don't, adhere to our policies, and some of them are, legal as far as, transfer of ideas and that kind of stuff. But we do have just like the standards of humanity is what I like to call them. Like, be nice, like treat people as you want to be treated. Racist and bigotry and bullying, like that's not called for. We're a professional industry organization, and we need to act as such. So, the things that make me sad to see, and then we really do have an army of people who are supportive. But when I see somebody who says that they're struggling, and we do have like every site, we do have people who will go to the negative immediately and say stop writing. Like that would be something, and that does not happen very often. But with a million people, one or two people are going to be like that, and that's the type of stuff we don't see. And so that's where our moderators come in, and our leadership and staff come in and say, no, that's not acceptable. You have to keep writing, keep dreaming, keep your goals in sight. And so we really do consider ourselves a very supportive site. But we do have, we try and have eyes on everything 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's hard.
And I mean, moderators are great. But again, if you're a small community, you may not have access to an army of them.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any tools or automations or AIs that are out there that you've used or that you've just heard of that can help kind of streamline the moderation process?
I have no idea.
In the platforms that I use, the Mastodon specifically, you can block certain words. So you can make a block list that'll automatically take the sentence into moderation if a specific word is used. So you're able to do that. I have never, and this is maybe going to come as a shock, I've never had to have a moderator in my communities. We've never run into an issue, but we're also running a community for a specific show. We're not running a group or a network. It's for my listeners of my show. So I think there's where you're running this big community.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to deal with trolls all the time. Facebook groups, people join them, and then all of a sudden it gets, you get an issue. So you don't have a control. You can control and kick them, obviously. But I think for Facebook and stuff like that, you just have to have a moderator. There's no choice. Matter of fact, a couple of the groups I'm even has 6 or 7 moderators that do nothing but watch the commentary, and it's all volunteers. But again, I think it all depends on how big my community on Mastodon is about 300. It's not that many, but still, there's usually not an issue. I think it all depends on where you're participating in building your community. I think that's the key here.
Shelley, I'm going to give you, it's not a softball, unfortunately. Legal issues are becoming a concern lately in these communities. And there's been some debate back and forth over how much platforms should be responsible for comments that those platforms users make. And by the same token, how responsible communities should be for what people in those communities might say. How are you all protecting yourselves against those kinds of issues? Or is it something that's even on your radar?
Well, thank you for bringing it to my radar. I'm going to talk about it with my team this week. I think that, to talk about the legalities of everything, I really don't have a specific answer for that. I think a lot of times, like what our legal parameters are right now are more or less about the sharing of ideas and things that are like that. Because we have content creators that are also working together on Stage 32, we definitely make it, we have certain parameters where, Stage 32 does not own your content. Like we need to make that very clear so people feel safe to be working with us. But as far as the legalities of what type of accountability we have back to Stage 32, I don't really have an answer for you on that one. Just being transparent.
I respect the honesty, but you have some good information in there. Anybody?
So my first podcast was called Leveling Azeroth, which is about the World of Warcraft. So we're back to World of Warcraft suddenly. And they manage their online blogger podcast community really well. And one of the things they did was you have to deal with intellectual property and who owns the IP, and you want your podcasters and your bloggers to have high quality artwork to use, and you don't want to have to slap them with a do not, cease and desist. So what you do instead is you provide that to them with a clause that says you're going to use it in this capacity with our permission. As a podcaster and a blogger, we signed off on that, and we got some great stuff. We got free codes. We got updated materials. We'd often get insights before they would go out to the press. So that's one of the ways that you can help like create a community if they're using your stuff, if they're blogging about your stuff. So for writers, musicians, people who put out works that you want other people to buy or review, that's a great way to kind of do it. To have a, here's your disclaimer. I'm sending you an ARC, if it's a book, an advanced reader copy. You cannot sell this or publish it on the web for free, but I would like for you to have it. And please, if you would to review it. So I've had those experiences.
Yeah, I've just adopted the policy, just don't be a jerk. And if you're a jerk, you're gone. That's the simple rule. But again, it depends on the scale you're operating at.
Mhm.
I think it's all,
Yeah, I'm sure we have.
That path goes this way. And when you get up to hundreds of thousands of users in a community, well, then, you think about Joe Rogan, someone like that, and how big his community is. I'm sure he's got 2 or 3 team members that does nothing but scours the YouTube, Spotify comments, everything that's going on to make sure that things stay copacetic. But again, I think it really depends on your situation, on what level you need to go to. I think the don't be a jerk clause is a good one. And actually that's part of our, you're joining this community, don't be a jerk. That's said in the welcome message.
Well, and I understand like the kind of question that you're asking though, like what if, and I don't know, maybe somebody here can answer the panel, but the question of like, what if somebody gets doxxed from your website? Like that's what I was thinking you meant rather than like So I don't know what that type of response would be like. Is there any precedent for the website to be accountable for that or the community to be accountable?
I've not seen that, but I have written a social media policy for a board of directors where we had to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
We had somebody threaten somebody else. And so amazingly, overnight, I was writing a policy for that board on what happens if you do that. And so from that point on, people signed that policy. So that's the biggest thing is to try to do it before you have a problem. Is my suggestion.
Sometimes the creators are the problem.
Oh, yeah, no.
We have a very straightforward terms of service. Don't threaten violence against someone. Don't be a racist. A line of items that are not acceptable as a company. So sometimes it's like we have to fire customers because of their content. It's pretty rare, but every once in a while we have to do that. So those types of shows are usually brought to our attention pretty quickly by someone that is. So, oops, well, you need to look at this. And then we manage it through our legal.
Okay. I feel like I kind of derailed the conversation with
it's
that.
okay.
We got a little too serious. So I'm going to do 2 things. First, if anybody has any questions, feel free to just come up to the orange line and ask them. No one's going to bite your head off. This is very much a safe space.
I don't know, Channing might.
I had a good lunch today. And while we're getting ready to take these questions, I would love for the 3 of you to think about some communities other than your own, obviously, that you're a part of that you really enjoy and why. And we'll circle back to that. But go ahead.
Hello, thank you once again for having this panel. It's very informative. I had a quick question. So I'm having trouble with getting. We have a lot of viewers and a lot of listeners and downloads, but like no one interacts. They don't feel a need to say something or want to get in there, and that's the community part that I'm missing. Like building, like them wanting to respond to our Discord or wanting to step up and say, I'll moderate. How do you get them to engage into that?
Sometimes I bribe them.
That's good.
Throughout a contest, I'd like you to hear your commentary from this. Everyone that responds will put the number of responses in a student random generator and you get $50. So sometimes we try to do that to kickstart the conversation just by offering some sort of a cash prize or maybe something. I picked up a bunch of stuff today here that I'm going to take back that I'll give away over the next 3 months on my show that I picked up at the Mart. So it's those types of things that we try to do to try to encourage community involvement.
I have to agree. Like, even if it's a freebie that you're giving out that encourages them to go sign up, that works. But also, you might want to find out, are you where they're having their conversation? So if they're not engaging at all, are they someplace else that you should be talking to them? And sometimes that surprises you where that is. So I know that for Discord, for me, even though I'm a somewhat of a tech girl, it took a while for them to keep holding the carrot to get me to come over because I'd forget it was there. But I was always on Instagram and Facebook. And so sometimes you have to find people where they are. But I think freebies and contests are a great way.
But your point's good. You gotta know where your tribe's hanging out.
Yeah.
And it's not only just the interaction, it's also the growth piece.
Yeah.
You know, so those kind of go hand in hand. If you find out where your fans are or future fans are, you can really make some serious movement both in building community but building audience size.
Yeah, and I also find just having one-on-one conversations with people really help. Sorry. Sip of water.
Oh, no, stop. Yeah, so we've learned that one-on-one conversation and bribery works.
Yeah.
So, hey, there's the lesson.
It's sort of like 3-year-olds. I mean, how do we get them to do things? Well, we bribe them and we talk to them at their level, where they are at.
You got a quick comment?
Yeah. One thing you can do is you could try gamifying it too. Like maybe they get like levels or accolades or medals or some sort of award that shows that they're an active participant.
Good example, the Facebook top comments badge. You're thinking about things like that, little reward. Okay.
Well, and you can mention them. Like if you see them, like they give a comment, I'm going to talk about them on that next show or put that in my next blog and say thank you.
We give our contributors, based on their contribution level, titles. So when I introduce them in response to a donation or a comment, I'll address them as their title that we have given them to the show. So as an example, I lived in Hawaii for 25 years, so I use a lot of Hawaiian terms based upon the contribution level. And so, they hear their name and it kind of makes Hawaiians upset sometimes. So, but it's one of those things where it's just one of the things we've gamified as well.
And we also bring people in the community out from what we call out from under the big top into, if it's somebody who is just had a successful victory lap. One of our staff members, Kay Ross, does a great end of the week victory lap Instagram live with that person. So it's, picking that person out and bringing them into the spotlight on one of your other social media channels. I think that's a way to engage them, but also be able to, you want to switch those followers that you have into people who are watching on the platform too, because people are, they're consuming your information from all different ways. But if your ultimate goal is to get them back into your community, you can have the fans that watch you on your social media sites, but then you can kind of trail them to your, to the base where you'd like them to be.
Because sometimes they won't come. They'll stay on Twitter or wherever. They're not going to come to your community no matter what, but they'll still keep engaging you there.
And really quick, how do you find out where, so you're saying find out where the community is? What's the good tips to find where they are?
Ask. Just ask. Where are you guys hanging out? What's your favorite social? Or do a survey of your audience. Find out where, what platform they're hanging out on the most.
Yeah.
So do a survey with a giveaway.
Or if you're, you can always invite your followers to join you in a Zoom webinar meeting and channel it that way too.
That's a good one.
Make them feel like they're part of the growth process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to personalize it as much as possible. I always look to the online community as or the lounges where I'm literally opening the door to a room of people. And if I was in a room of people, how would I interact? And how would I make my connections? And I really believe in, the power of organic connections and being able to keep in touch with people and relationship building. I think that's first and foremost, with any healthy and growing type of environment.
One thing too, you have to remember is if you're on Twitch, you're one to many. If you're on some platforms, you're not necessarily doing a lot of one-to-one in how your content's coming across. One thing that I always, because I do an audio and video podcast, I have a little sign on my monitor. It always says you have an audience of one, so that they feel that it's a personal connection. And when they do, and they get that, it's more, because it's not like you're talking to the masses. You feel like they're talking to you, are you talking to them, they'll have a higher tendency to engage back. It's something that's hard to do, especially if you're doing live, because it's real easy to, hey, everybody, what do you think? And you have to kind of learn how to use your terminology correctly to be able to make them feel that you are actually talking to them, even though you're not, but you are, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can't see it at
Gorgeous.
home, but he has an amazing costume.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So I guess this is sort of a different type of question, but we have a pretty actually active community, which is great. But I was wondering what advice you have for if, say, like one of the owners of the channel or owners of the community isn't engaging with the community, and like outside of like conversations which have been had, like how do you sort of get across to someone who is supposed to be a steward of the brand or a steward of the channel that it is important to be engaging with the community that is very active and trying to engage with you?
Have you tried beating them?
No.
We do not endorse violence.
That's sad, because the way I look at my audience is, and it goes back to a story essentially more than 16 years ago, where I really realized that my audience was part of my family. But the Reader's Digest version was my dad was killed in an automobile accident. I was supposed to have an anniversary show. I was gone 10 days. I came back to 5,000 emails from the community of condolences. And that's when I really realized at that point that this audience was much, much deeper, and I had to respect them. But it really is irritating as someone that's been in this situation where I go to someone's community and it's like we're all in there talking, but the creator's not. It's a disrespect. And I would tell them it's disrespectful not to engage with the community. I'd be very blunt.
Well, and I would ask them, why are they disengaged? Or have they lost like their spark for it, their passion for it? Are they stuck? Are they afraid? I mean, we're all wearing masks because there's still a pandemic going on out there. So has that thwarted them and their voice? I mean, so I would have that conversation, and also, but have it from, I always try to go from a gentle space. So I'd be like, okay, you're disengaged and that's not good, but why are you disengaged?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it could be something as simple as just a retraining issue. Maybe they haven't done something in a while. They've gotten a little cold, a little out of practice. And some people have a hard time asking for help or admitting that. So, all jokes about beating them aside, sometimes you just kind of have to ask, hey, do you have the resources to do this? Yeah.
I think too, as a company, I've got a gal she's on the payroll. She takes care of all the social media pieces, but I'm in there every day watching, because sometimes things are addressed to me and I need to respond, and she'll let me know if something's going on. So I think that if you have someone that's the social media manager, or someone that is actually designated to watch that, then they can be that person that's holding up that hot poker saying, hey, they're asking questions. How come you're not in here? You're making my life hard. Yeah. I think that would help. That helps also encourage the person to get engaged.
Yeah, and maybe they just need to be engaged in a different kind of level that's more, maybe the person who's running it has just so many things to do, that, within the community, that there's a different pattern. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's like our CEO is like the heartbeat of our brand at Stage 32, and RB is always like every Sunday he has a coffee and content. He makes himself available on Instagram and Twitter to be able to putting out videos talking about the passion of connecting and creating in the industry. And so maybe maybe there's a new way to introduce your leader into the community in a way that it speaks to them in a different way.
Yeah. I guess kind of a follow-up to that is, say, like when you have like three people who are co-owners of something, how do you go about sort of dividing up community responsibilities and that sort of thing? Because I think that that's the biggest challenge that we're having, is it's all falling sort of two people or one person, and the third is sort of not there. I don't know if you have any sort of experience dealing with that or advice or anything like that.
On one of my shows, I have a co-host. He's actually a competitor two competitors do we're fierce competitors in the business space, but we do a podcast together.
Cool.
And I take care of all the production. He takes care of all social. And that was decided early on. Now, every once in a while, I'll bounce in on that social stream, but he's the one that manages the social stream. So I think people know that follow that channel. They know that division of duty. So because we all can't be there all the time. So I think if you can find out what the balance is and then communicate that to the community that say, hey, I'm going to be the voice here, and you filter stuff through yourself or whoever that may be, I think it's probably a good strategy if you can't get that person to engage.
And I hate to bring up legal stuff again, but anytime you share a property with somebody, anytime you're co-hosting or doing anything, you should have some type of agreement. And the reason is because you just never know what's going to happen in life and with people. So first off, if you don't have that, this might be a great time to sit down and say, hey, we're 3 people. Here's our 3 responsibilities, and divide it up just like he has. But you also have to look and see what people's strengths are. So is it that the person who's not engaging doesn't feel like they have the skill set to do the things that you're hoping that they will do? And if they don't, how can you help them get that skill set?
Right.
So that would be the first thing I would do, is take stock. But I would also start kind of having some guidelines.
Yeah, I just feel like maybe a new strategy session, or maybe just, kind of like a leadership retreat's needed to kind of refresh and get everybody back on board and feel really energized about what you're doing, and find the heart and why you're excited about, or why they're excited about it again.
Yeah, but that creative breakup can be ugly, and I've seen them actually end up in court. So it's a very serious discussion. If you're a co-owner in a brand, what happens when it's time for that partner to leave? Because sometimes it's time for someone to leave. If they're, it can happen, and it's just because we all start out thinking we're going to be cool and great co-producers with each other, but at some point you almost have to say, is this what I really want to be part of? So that goes part of with the content creation process.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Good luck.
Yes.
All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left. And again, I do want us to kind of end on a lighter note. So I know dealing with communities, and just like I deal with websites, sometimes when you're at home, you want to disengage from that. Like my personal website looks like crap because I work on websites all day. Last thing I want to do when I get home is update my own website. So I'm just curious, what are some groups that you all are active in outside of your jobs? You don't need to give us your handles or anything, but just something, maybe you go there for fun, or maybe even go there for a little bit of kind of learning. But yeah, just give us 2 or 3 that we might want to check out.
I love Reddit. I do. Every time I find a new favorite TV show, I'm on Reddit just looking it up just so I can get into it. I mean, I love The Office. I probably listen to 3 or 4 different Office podcasts, and I like the Dunder Mifflin. Shout out to Dunder Mifflin on Reddit. You guys, I love reading everything. So that's where I go when I just kind of need a brain break. And any TV, like I said, any TV show that I'm into, I'm following the Reddit community. And it's kind of funny to see how also, because of whatever show I'm into, how different the Reddit community is in its own subset. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, Reddit, I think that Reddit's my brain break.
So I'm going to say every single DragonCon group on Facebook. So I love them. I love the DragonCon report group, the ESO network group, because I'm friends with them. And so I go and see what they're chatting about. But because I am a complete and utter nerd when it comes to social media, and it's takes over my life because I teach it so much. The Marketing and Communication Women of Atlanta is one of
I'm in that group.
It's one of the best groups ever,
it's
isn't
awesome.
it?
Yep.
It is awesome. So if you fall into a category that can join that group and you're in marketing communication, you should, because they're awesome.
Being that I live podcasting probably 60 hours or more a week, when I'm disengaged, it's not on podcasting. But I think that one of the groups that I always recommend for the ladies is a group called She Podcast. Mm-hmm. It's a Facebook group. Only women, no men allowed in that group. It's a great place to go and collaborate and have discussions, great discussions. Definitely the podcast movement group, although they're under a little bit of fire right now for some things that happened a couple of weeks ago. But that's a good group too to hang out and just kind of watch the flow of information. But personally, I actually get tied up in some YouTube series. That's where I just sailing during the pandemic. I was watching sailing channels. Who knows why? I guess it was they were free to do stuff while we were all locked up, right?
I watch
So-
tiny home video. I don't
Tiny
want a
home.
tiny home. I'm never gonna have one, but I watch so many.
But I think it's, I think if you're building a show and building a community and you don't have a budget, you're going to be immense in this thing hardcore you're going to have to put the time in to build that group. And don't be afraid to have events, have some event, have a meetup. That's a great way to, I know one guy's name's Danny. Oh my gosh. He's a gamer. I'm going to get shot because I forgot his last name, but he does. Anyway, Gamer Tag Radio is the name of his podcast. And he has meetups all the time and how he's built his community. Matter of fact, he's a master at it.
And personally, I listen to a lot of podcasts too. And if a podcast has a live episode that I can jump in and use their hashtag and chat along with, I'm all over it. When Coming to America 2 came out, a podcast that I listened to, they had a watch along. So they sent out, okay, everybody hit play now. And people were just going back and forth on Twitter of all things.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it worked out. I used to live tweet a lot of nerdy TV shows because I didn't have a lot of nerdy people locally. So yeah, for a while back when it was good, I would live tweet during Flash and Green Arrow. Am I wrong?
That was a good statement.
Yeah.
Very good statement.
Am I wrong? Yeah, I'm just saying. So yeah, there's lots of ways and lots of creative outlets that are out there. So I'm just wondering, do we have any more questions from the group? Panel, do you feel like there's something that I should have mentioned? Who wants their 60 seconds each to shoot their shot? Just something that you feel like needs to be addressed in this panel that maybe I missed. Or was I just that good?
Channing, you're always good.
Well, I mean, I think that if you're, for anybody out there, if you're inspired to go find a community, just do it. Don't let it hold you back if there's something that you're interested in. I think just, that would just be my 30-second small elevator speech. Just do it. Find your people. Everybody, there's a connection out there for everybody.
I'm very, very big on building your own brand and having a place to build your brand. I probably said this a million times over the past 17 years. Have a website you can call home, some place to direct them to. Then they can outward engage with wherever you want them. They can consume your content wherever, but have a place to have them come and find those links to all those community building things you're trying to do. And it's not only good for your brand, it's good for Google awareness as well.
All
I
very
shout that at the top of my lungs all the time.
all very good advice. So before we wrap up, and I'm gonna let our panel kind of give you their social information so you can go online and follow them and learn even more important things. I want to actually mention Blueberry real quick. They are a big friend of the used to be called the podcasting track, but now the digital media track. And they help make a lot of what you're seeing either in person or on Twitch happen. So really good company. Check them out for podcasting help, especially if you are not the most technical person in the world. You don't need to be an engineer to have a podcast or to start your own community. So don't be afraid. As far as how to reach us later, again, we'll start off to the left. You want to give your socials or how to reach you?
Absolutely. So the easiest place to find me personally, would be on Instagram, and it's Von Schmalz, VON. You can spell it right here, SCHMALS. And I do have a link tree in there that links to all my, upcoming events for organizations that I'm involved in. So that's the best way to find me. And also you can find Stage 32 at Stage 32 and also at stage32.com.
Awesome. I'm Tyra Burton, and everything's at tyraburton.com because thankfully it was available when I changed my last name. So you can find me everywhere except for Twitter, where I am Tyra Ann, A-N-N-E Burton, because Tyra Burton is single and ready to mingle, and she's still mingling 4 years later and still has not posted anything else. I'm not bitter. I'm just saying. I do have 2 podcasts. One's called The Geeky Side. That is a talk show podcast. And I'm always looking for people to interview. So you don't know it, but you're interesting. And I want to interview you. And I would interview anybody up here, just saying. And you can go to thegeekyside.com, and there's a form there you can fill out if you so would like to do that. And then I have another podcast called Geek Meets Social, which is just me and a microphone having a good time. And I'm going to be talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi soon.
I'm Todd at blueberry.com, blueberry without the E's because we couldn't afford the E's. I'm at Geek News on Twitter. I do 3 shows. Geek News Central, that's my flagship show I've been doing since October of 2004. Podcast Insider, which is the show that's internal to Blueberry, but probably the show that get listened to the most by creators is called The New Media Show. You listen long enough to the show, you get a PhD in podcasting. It's a show I talked about earlier that I do with a co-host. And again, it's at newmediashow.com. Thank you, everybody.
I love the fact that you do it with your competitor. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
beautiful.
really cool.
I really do.
And before I give you my information, which I know you're all salivating for, I want to remind you can still donate to Open Hand at any time during the convention. DragonCon is matching donations, so every little bit helps. And in this case, your little bits will be doubled. So again, it's a great charity. They're keeping people fed. Consider donating whatever you can. You can also go online and donate at openhandatlanta.org.
/GE/DragonCon.
Oh, I did not have that. So okay.
I'm sorry, but
All right.
that one will get you to the main page. But if you want it to count toward the DragonCon stuff, and we got to get to that $100,000 so we get all the matching,
Mhm.
it's going to be the donate.openhandatlanta.org/GE/DragonCon, and that's been running on our Twitch stream at the bottom.
Mhm.
So if you need it, go check a Twitch video out. You can find it there.
There you go. So Twitch people, go online, send us some money. Well, send Open Hand some money.
Open hand.
You're
We gotta
welcome to
feed
send me
people.
money, but that's a separate site. Thanks everybody for coming out. This has been fun. I'm Channing Sherman on Instagram and Twitter. Feel free to give us a follow and enjoy the rest of your DragonCon.
Yay! So Channing, what's that podcast going to be called?
I'm sorry. So what?
What's that
What?
podcast going to be
Oh, I
called?
think I'm driving through a tunnel. I can't
Uh-huh.
hear.
I'll put it out when he says it. We're going to keep hugging you.
I know, as you should. Well,